Hello and welcome on in to the Twisted Turnbuckle podcast. I am Chris DeCarlo, and wow, what a great, awesome show we're going to have tonight for our fans and friends all over this great country and world. Underneath Benny is the man with class, Mike, the class DiGregorio from Rhode Island. How are you?
Good to be here, everybody.
Above Mike, the class, is, of course, always in the corner to my left. He is the podcast host, the producer, internet radio DJ, Mr. Benny Scala.
And tonight I am in the Wally Cox position, and I will tell you that all over the world, hundreds of thousands of female admirers will be wearing this shirt that says, "I love Cox."
All right. Awesome. In the middle, next to me, by Benny, is podcaster, author, host of the Positively Pat Sims show on YouTube live Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern, Mr. Pat Sims.
Please hold your applause. Hold your applause. Thank you so much. Love to be here. Thank you for having me.
Underneath me, former NWA Detroit big-time wrestling announcer, wrestling historian, Mr. Terry Sullivan.
Howdy.
Next to Terry, underneath Pat, is our center square tonight, and we are so honored and glad to have him back. Former pro wrestler, known as the Russian Bull, Mr. Vladimir Koloff.
Spasiba. До свидания, comrades. Zhuzota, his brother Nikita says.
Magnetia.
Awesome.
Magnetia.
Underneath Terry is wrestling historian, host of the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel podcast, Mr. Tony Richards.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here tonight.
Next to Tony, underneath Mr. Koloff, is from Mid-Atlantic Territory Wrestling, historian, Mr. Lee Petry.
Good evening. I think I'm in the Leslie Uggams position this evening.
Well, that's a blast from the past.
Yeah, right? You're welcome.
And last but not least, next to Mr. Petry, underneath Mike the Class, former pro wrestler, champion in territories, Mr. Wildcat, Wendall Cooley.
Thank you. I feel like I'm in a small package.
There we go.
Somebody help me out of this square.
Yeah, that sounds like my honeymoon.
Yeah, hopefully some woman never says that to me.
Benny, if you will, please start us off with a toast.
Oh yeah, to episode 5, and I think this will be our best episode of Hollywood Squares. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. And before we get started, our friend, Mr. Positively Pat Sims, author, why don't you promote your new book just came out on Amazon?
Yes, that's right. Just this morning, we went live. My book, Vengeance, has been published. It is a thriller that is available on Kindle, paperback, and hardcover. And I'm super excited. It's my first book. It's 45 years in the making, and I'm super excited. And there's much more to come, guys. Stay tuned, man.
All right.
Awesome.
Great.
Benny, my video disclaimer, please. This is under U.S. Copyright Law 107, fair use. The clips I show here are from my own personal DVD collection. I do not sell them. I do not rent them to nobody. They are clipped for our enjoyment, our commentary, and to keep what we love, classic pro wrestling, alive. And Benny, with that, will you please roll QU1?
Of him, Mr. Hansen, and before this man, as you look into his eyes, are you going to be partial to Superstar Graham or to Bob Backlund?
Mr. McMahon, neither one of them. Neither one of them. I've told Backlund this before, and I'm telling Billy right now. Billy, if you want your hand up in the air, you have to deserve it and win the match by yourself. That's all.
So with that, our first question tonight is, do you think Superstar Billy Graham should have gotten the WWF World title from Bob Backlund near the end of '82? Mr. Pat Sims.
Man, that's a good question, because there's so many what ifs if that happens, right? But the purpose of Billy Graham coming back at that time was to kind of reestablish him and bring him back and kind of reinvent him in a way, right? And also give Bob Backlund, who'd held the title, I believe, for 6 years at that point, a legitimate opponent that was a threat. Now, we know in hindsight what ends up happening, and it seemed to work out pretty well for the WWF at that time. But for me, I'm always a big fan of the heel coming in and taking that title, especially one as established as Graham was as a top heel, and having the babyface chase. That would have given a little bit more to Backlund, and maybe even it would have made what happened later with the Iron Sheik and bringing in of Hulk Hogan even more powerful in hindsight. But hindsight's always 20/20. But that's my take on that.
Benny.
You know, as much as I loved, tie-dyed T-shirt, superstar Billy Graham, I could not stand Karate Man Billy Graham. I thought the whole gimmick sucked. What did he know about karate? But I don't think so. I mean, at that point, if you're going to switch the title up of Backlund, I would have switched it to maybe a Valentine or a Morocco, two great guys who, could have carried, I think, the championship as a heel. I agree with Pat. Sometimes you gotta have the baby faces chasing the title, but not Billy Graham's time was gone. I think that was just his way of, kind of getting another run. Yeah, I mean, I think after he destroyed the belt, didn't Backlund go like absolutely insane?
Yes,
I think that was our first view of Mr. Backlund, many years later. But no, I did not see him as a viable world champion. His time had gone by that point.
Before I forget, we'd like to say hello and welcome to everybody in our live chat. Benny will let us know about that. Mike DeClass, what do you think?
I agree with both Benny and positively Pat. I don't think they should have put the title on him coming back. I think they could have put him obviously in a feud with Bob Backlund and maybe drawn it out a little bit, but have him kind of lose to him. I mean, I didn't like the gimmick either, to be honest with you, not compared to his original gimmick. So, I mean, there's just bringing him back, giving him another run would have been okay, but I just couldn't see it at that time. So,
Mr. Koloff.
I kind of feel that if Graham would have had the strap put on him, would the stars have aligned the way they did from the Office standpoint to putting it on the Sheik and then putting it to Hogan? Would there have been, was Backlund that instrumental in the transition? I don't know. I didn't like the karate gimmick either, but I think they were trying to capitalize on the Chuck Norris gimmick. There was a movie that came out at that time that Norris was in, and it was kind of a shoot movie where he was fighting a lot of guys, but he was wearing long karate pants like that, and I think they were trying to emulate that look with Graham to see if he could have another run with that Chuck Norris type deal, the karate guy. But everybody has said hindsight's 20/20. So with Graham, would it have been the transition from Backlund to Sheik would have been the same way with Graham to Sheik, and then so on and so forth. And we all know why Backlund didn't want to drop it to Hogan, because he felt Sheik was and Husserl was a legitimate shooter, as was Backlund. So I don't know. And again, I was just, what was that, 1982? I was just coming off my state championship in high school as a junior, and so I really didn't watch a lot of pro wrestling. So I think a lot of the other gentlemen that are on here that are longer in the tooth and grayer in the hair than I am would have a better assessment of that. But again, would the stars have lined up the way that they did that brought us to where we are. But I will tell you one thing. Without Ivan Koloff beating Bruno Sammartino, none of that would have happened.
There you go.
I don't think.
Mr. Terry Sullivan.
You know, it's interesting. They always had their formula, and the formula was the long-term champion was a face, and the heels were only transitional champions. I think Billy Graham only lasted for a year or something like that. And I wonder why they took the belt off him in the first place when business was so good with him as the champion. But again, they had their formula, and they stuck with it, and it made them successful. But to answer the question, no, not in 82.
Mr. Cooley. Mr. Cooley.
1982. I was in Baghdad, Florida, training, learning this business under the tutelage of several former greats, Bill Ash, Norman Frederick Charles III, Bad Boy Hines, and then my actual manager, trainer, agent, Larry Pearson. I never met either of those guys, but I thought Bob Backlund was too clean cut. You know, there was no little rough edges around him, you know, to be attractive to a huger, bigger audience, you know, like your rough guys, you know what I mean? They want to see a rough guy, that kind of thing. But being a babyface all my career, I think that the babyface needs to chase that belt. You're going to get a lot more sellouts, in my opinion, for someone to see a babyface take a title versus hold the title. Back in those days, now it's all different now, because you definitely want to let the heels come and get it, because 90% of your fans anymore, you know, are heel fans for all the gimmicks they're coming up with and such stuff as that. But I thought Billy had a great gimmick. I'm like a couple of the others. I don't think the Chuck Norris gimmick was such a great thing at the time. I liked his original gimmick. And I mean, dude, he was a phenomenal physical specimen of a human being. And why would you get away from it? I don't know, but I don't know. I think that they probably should have, just to get it off of Backlund. It was just too clean cut, in my opinion.
Mr. Petry.
It didn't work anywhere he went with that karate gimmick. I echo what a lot has been said already. They should have, in my opinion, never dropped the belt off of him to begin with. I think actually that was probably, if anything, was the downward spiral of Billy Graham. It was him losing that belt. I think it really, really impacted him and who he was and his confidence and everything else. He was a shell of himself afterwards. But at that time frame, I mean, you had a bunch of other folks. I mean, you could have, I think Morocco would have been an amazing champion, right? Just the heat he got. I think Slaughter was still floating around before he turned against the Sheik, right? But we hadn't had that happen yet. So he was still floating around as a possibility as well. But no, I don't think he should have gotten the belt in 82.
Mr. Tony Richards.
Yeah, I don't really have too much more to add. I mean, Billy's gimmick stunk, and he shouldn't have. I mean, it just did. I mean, he brought it down, as Lee alluded to, he brought it down south until 85, and Dusty was just being, their relationship went back to 74, 75, and Dusty, was basically had him on the crew, but it wasn't really over. That Starcade 84 thing was terrible, and they should have ridden him longer when he had the momentum, when he was a heel champion. And I think Don Morocco would have been a lot better person to pass the belt to in 82.
All right. Benny, if you will, QU2.
QU2.
Well, our question here is, do you think that Jimmy the Superfly Snuka should have gotten the WWF Intercontinental title off of Don Morocco in 1983? Mr. Tony Richards.
No, I don't think so. I think this is the opposite. I mean, I think if the main champion is a babyface, then the Intercontinental Champion should be a heel, and you had it on the right guy who probably should have been your champion. So I don't think so. I mean, Jimmy was hot, and again, high spots get over, and that's what Jimmy had. But it was, I mean, he just didn't have an interview. He his work was okay, but I mean, that one spectacular move was fantastic, but then where do you go beyond that?
Good point. Mr. Petry.
He didn't need it. He didn't need it for that time frame. They were coming to see him no matter what he did. He could have done anything in the ring at that time frame, and people would have paid money to see him in a main event. It didn't. You could have put him with midgets; it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
He did not need the belt.
Mr. Cooley.
That was the splash heard around the world. That's all you heard about was Superfly Snuka. Even kids in school out in the playgrounds had seen that, and they all referred to, Jimmy Superfly Snuka. With a gimmick like that, and there's been a lot of great wrestlers out there that's never had titles, didn't need a title to get over. They just had a certain air about themselves. And I agree with the other guys. He didn't have much of an interview, but he just had that charisma and that air about him that could draw money, because you were wondering what was he going to do next, after that big splash off top of the cage that was heard around the world. You don't need to be a champion to do that.
Mr. Terry Sullivan.
No, 2 words: Nancy Argentino.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Koloff.
I agree with the first 3 adamantly. I worked Snuka in Hagerstown, Maryland, and obviously he was the baby. And he did the splash even in his later years off the top. And I'm going to tell you something. When I was on the mat waiting for the splash and he went up to the top, I don't recall ever hearing such a large pop by the fans other than like when the Road Warriors music hit. Snuka was over. And then if he were the champion, who would they have fed him to? How would they have gotten the belt off of him with him doing the splash? How would they have transitioned that out? So I think he was right where he needed to be. And I mean, hell, he didn't need the crown, so to speak. He was already over. So, and he could do interviews with, like with Piper or anybody else. Just let them work on him and let them work on him and his greatness as to what he could do. I mean, that Wendall knows, as a former brother in the ring, man, you're up on top of that cage, and the way he did that night in and night out with precision and technique, and you never heard anybody say he's hurting guys. It never happened. So I think he was right where he needed to be. And again, I don't remember who said it in earlier, but in the previous question, but things lined up, and that's the way it was going to work. So, and I never knew Morocco could do it. Morocco couldn't do great interviews. I didn't think. I don't know.
Mike DeClass.
I like that segment a lot. I thought that was good the way they used to do it back in those days. As far as Snuka, no, he didn't need it. And I mean, like I said, there weren't too many guys that were willing to go off the top of a cage back then. So he was a big draw when it came to that move. And, it's not like now where you got these guys that, and one of the guys that I kind of compare to Mick Foley, and Undertaker, and when they would go off the top of the cage and you'd see this crazy stuff, that was That was big for back in, at that time. So, I mean, it's just something you didn't see too much of. So they didn't really need to put the belt on him. To be honest, I don't think it would have made a difference.
Pat Sims.
I mean, I could basically just say ditto at this point. But yeah, I mean, it's all of it's right on the head. There was so much around this that you could say this is why Snuka didn't get the title or why Don kept the title. But I mean, that splash gave us basically Mick Foley, right? And Snuka, when I was growing up as a kid watching Jimmy Superfly Snuka, I didn't care if he had a title. To Vladimir's, I didn't care. He was a guy like Piper. Like, I never understood why he even had the Intercontinental title other than to just give it back to Brett. He didn't need it. I thought they were better without it. And the best point that I felt was made was, what do you do when he wins it? With Don, when you've got a heel carrying the title, you have this endless streak of baby faces coming at him. But strong, good heels, especially in the WWF, were starting to become less and less. It was becoming a babyface territory, and that's great when you're my age, which at that time would have been 3. So, but for the rest of the general audience, that's why things shift. That's why a lot of people prefer the heels going on and the babyface chasing.
Benny.
Pretty much what everybody else said. Number one, he absolutely did not need that title. Number two, between his steroid abuse and his drug abuse, I don't think he would have been a reliable champion. And number three, kudos to Frankie Williams, the pride of Columbus, Ohio, for holding Snuka with both arms so Morocco could crack him with that microphone. Great job, Frankie.
Yeah. All right. Well, right now we're going to get into one of our 3 classic clips for tonight. And Benny, if you will, classic 1.
All right. This is going to take a second because I had to. This is too big to. Give me 1 second here.
I kind of took this from Mr. Pat Sims in your last show about heels and faces.
All right. Classic 1.
Yes, sir.
All right. Here we go.
See, he hasn't been putting his hands on me right now. He should have been when he should have been in the ring. He wasn't in the ring.
Here was a man who was your best friend.
Doing the crowding is Brody, who has showed a definite respect for the style of Dusty Rhodes. And
4 is outside the ring. The referee calls for the bell. The referee calls for the bell, and it is all over. It is all over. And so Sterling Golden, in a very impressive victory over 2 men. There you see Stan Hansen coming out. And wait a minute. We have something going on here. We have a confrontation now between Tony Atlas and Sterling Golden, and we could have some problems right here and now. And he's asking to get into the ring right now. Golden just defeated 2 men, and quite a confrontation. He wants a contract.
Up here one time. I want on this camera, I want to know. Tony, I didn't see what happened because I was in the parking lot. But David Crockett has stood up for me. He told everybody that we were friends. He stood up for me. He stood up for the Alliance. And now I'm going to take care of...
You've got your own personal reasons for all of this. Adrian Adonis, I don't know what to say about that man.
I can say that about him. The daffodil of the WWF. Such a wonderful human being. Can't take anything away from him being tough. Don't take any away from him. He's been a tough man all his life, and this ain't going to be any easy battle.
Well, what about yourself? Why are you doing it, Roddy?
I believe, yeah. So Our first clip is about some famous heels that then turned faces. And we'll start with you, Pat.
Man, I remember, so a lot of the stuff I watched as I got older and went from being just a WWF fan to a pro wrestling fan. And when you become a pro wrestling fan, that's when the floodgates open. And I got to get legitimate goosebumps rewatching. I remember the Nikita turn. Unbelievable. I cheered, and this was replaying it, 20 years later? It was that amazing. One of my all-time favorite, Piper. I got a Piper did not change Piper. Piper stayed Piper. It was the heels that turned Piper. And I loved that about his turn. And you look at everything, it's always the decision is made by the character 9 times out of 10 to make the change. Here, it was put upon him, and the fans went with it because you loved to hate Piper. You loved to love Piper, and kudos to the AWA, Vern Gagne, for what he did for Hulk Hogan. Hogan was ready to hang him up, for what I understand. And, Vern got a hold of him, and the rest, as they say, is pretty much history. And then Vince and Hogan made it together. But now Piper and Nikita in that list. And then Dusty, I have a soft spot. I still have my little Dusty here. I have a soft spot for Dusty. And man, just watching Dusty brings a smile to my face. Like I can't handle heel Dusty. I love babyface Dusty. He's one of my all-time faves.
Benny.
I was just thinking the very first babyface turn I ever saw was in 1969. Bruno was in the ring with Professor Tanaka and Mitsu Arakawa, and they're double teaming him. And in comes the hated heel Gorilla Monsoon. I'm thinking, oh crap, he's going to obliterate the three of them against Bruno. Monsoon turned babyface and helped Bruno. And this, the man from Manchuria all of a sudden spoke very fluent English and relocated to Willingboro, New Jersey. Only in pro wrestling, right? But for me, and even though it was later on in my wrestling, fanship, to me, nothing will ever beat Nikita turning babyface. It was just so emotional.
Mike the Class.
Yeah, it was good watching some of those old segments, but the one that really made me laugh was the Piper one. That was great when they were all attacking Piper and Adonis. That was just great. I mean, for that time. As far as when we're talking about like the baby face to heel and vice versa, there's only one wrestler that I could have swore that's had more heel turns and face turns than the Big Show. I know it's a little bit more modern than we're not talking about the modern stuff, but Paul White, that guy had more heel turns than any other wrestler I could have swore.
And Paul Orndorff.
Yeah.
Luger.
Yeah, Luger.
Yeah, that's right, Luger.
Mr. Koloff.
Piper was Piper. He was going to be great either way. It's just like the Road Warriors. Babies or heels. They were great either way. But I'm biased. You guys know I'm biased. Nikita. People went nuts. And I think the product was different. The Crockett product was different than the New York product. The Crockett product was different than the Gagne product. And I'm not saying more realistic, but that turn with Crockett for Dusty, people went nuts, and it prolonged Dusty's career, so big time. They made some money with it. They put paying butts in the seats.
For sure. Mr. Sullivan.
It's the back and forth turns are something they do way too often these days, in my opinion. When I was a kid growing up, the only wrestling I saw was from Detroit and from Cleveland. And there, it was rare, maybe once a year, if that. I remember Ernie Ladd turning heel. It happened against Mark Lewin on television. Then, of course, in being the land of the Sheik, anybody who teamed up with the Sheik usually was destined for a face turn. The Sheik and whoever his partner was would end up fighting, and then down the road feuding, and it always turned the partner face.
Tony Richards.
Well, I'm probably going to be an outlier here. I was a fan at the time in 1986 when this happened. I was 23 years old, and I was a pretty big Crockett fan, and I didn't like the Nikita turn. I thought he had so much steam as a heel. He'd had a great 85. He'd just come off the best of 7 with Magnum, and that wasn't going to continue, obviously, but they just had so much steam off of that U.S. title series that I thought they should, and they did go ahead and throw him at Flair again at Starrcade, but he was as a face, and I just didn't think that match had as much on it as if Nikita had been a heel. And I thought that was going to be a very short-term deal for Nikita. And I thought he would have been much more effective to have been a heel at least another year. America had not quite moved to where it would eventually go with communism. It was still a hot deal in 1986. If it had been 1990, that would have made more sense to me. And the other thing, at the time, I was a little bit wired into what was going on, and I knew that the UWF sale was in the works and being talked about. So I was kind of hopeful that Dr. Death Steve Williams or Ted DiBiase would be brought in as another person on the face side and leave Nikita as a heel, but that's not what happened.
Mr. Petry.
Oh, so much to comment on. Lots of good conversation. Go back to Dusty for half a second. Big Dusty fan. We share a birthday, so that's awesome. But my favorite time in Dusty, believe it or not, is actually his ECW run. He looked like he had more fun and popped more crowds up in Philadelphia, up in the Northeast, doing that, and just being Dusty for about 5 minutes a night. That's all he needed to do. I love the Nikita thing. I know Tony and I are on different sides of the fence on this. We talked with Melody when she was on. The most underrated turn that it wasn't even shown there, back to Nikita, I think had gone, but Barry Windham joining the Horsemen. Mm-hmm. It was low key. It took about 6 weeks for all the nuggets to get dropped, and when it finally happened, mouths were open in that arena, and they were for weeks and weeks and weeks afterwards. Back to prolonging Dusty's career, did the same thing for him, carried him into the Bash in 88, right, with the U.S. title, and a heel Barry Windham was a good thing.
That turn happened on my birthday.
There you go.
I'll never forget that. It was on it was at the Clash, right?
The turn was at a house show.
They won the tag
They won the
belts at
tag
the Clash.
belts.
Yeah.
And like 2 weeks later, they're at a house show, and that they filmed for NWA Pro or Worldwide or whatever.
I remember now.
And they let the Horsemen get the belts back, and they were off and running.
Yeah.
And then go back to the Hogan stuff for just half a second. One of the things I've always thought about is Hogan without Bobby Heenan being his foil?
No.
In both the AWA and the WWF, right? I'm not saying he doesn't have charisma, and I'm not saying he wasn't that guy for the moment, but does that run last that long without Bobby Heenan on the other side on that microphone?
Good point.
I don't think so.
Mr. Cooley.
Okay, let me see if I can explain this, and you guys follow me and me not get twisted up. In the territory days, it was inevitable for your top heel, after he has done everything he can do with your baby faces, either he's going to leave or you got to do something different with him. He's going to turn, just like your top baby face is going to turn. However, it's the minds behind that see the potential and see where things can go with it, because not just anybody can turn heel from a baby and turn baby from a heel and get a response. and I'm going to give you proof of it. Back in, I want to say it was 87, maybe 88-ish in Continental, one of the worst flops ever, because we didn't have a top baby face other than myself. They turned me heel right out of the blue. I come into TV on a Monday night, and they're going to turn me heel on Danny Davis. Danny Davis, you know, was half of the Nightmares, you know, and I don't know. It didn't work. It did not work. 1 month later, they were turning me back babyface. It just didn't work. You know what I mean? And not to mention that probably I didn't know how to be a heel. I'd always been a babyface and didn't really know how to be a heel, but it all has to be crafted and timed out to get the full run of it and the magnitude and everything from it. In our case, it weren't. There was no other baby faces there other than Bob Armstrong, who had been there for, 8-10 years. He'd done everything: babyface, heel, babyface, heel, babyface, heel. He was in tag situations at that time with his boys in and out, Scott and Steve and Brad. There was no baby face there other than myself and Danny. And I don't know if it was because he didn't have that, that it factor with the people, or I didn't know how to be a heel, one or the other, but it didn't work. It may have lasted 4 weeks max, and they had to turn me back babyface. And it's timing is a lot of it, but you got to have that it factor, man. If you got it, you can be babyface, you can be heel. It don't matter. You got that charisma, and how to handle yourself and put asses in the seats. That's what it was all about in those days. It didn't matter. But I give kudos to the brains behind the whole deal, that planned all that stuff out and waited for the right opportunities, because who would not want to turn and do something if their career is just kind of stale and not doing anything, and turn me here, turn me there? What's it going to matter? You know what I mean? At that point in time, but to get the reaction and the magnitude and the big run out of it, there was a lot of brains involved.
Benny, if you will, Classic 2.
Sammartino buys the Bisco. Body slam! 2 3/4 almost, and a reverse. Another body slam, this time on Sammartino. Sammartino shoves the Bisco apart.
And then, hey, check out the top. That's right. Let's see. He went too far. He couldn't get too far. Ricky Steamboat has got McFlair in that ring, and it's all Ricky Steamboat now. That's right, it is. He's got him down now. David, Valentine now. He's screaming. Why is he screaming? He's got that leg.
So that was some classic footage of some classic pro wrestling feuds as our next topic. And Benny, start us off.
Well, for me, growing up in the Northeast, nothing beat Bruin and Larry in early 1980. The student against the teacher. That made so much money for both of those guys. The only thing that I really don't agree with, and it's funny because Nikita and I we covered this yesterday. The match, their very first match which I think is what you were showing, was from the Philly Spectrum, March 1st, 1980, was for their first official matchup. And I get that, like, that one had to be inconclusive, because you had to prolong the feud, which they did, all the way through Shea Stadium. Yeah. But my thing with that is that I think, and I said this to Nikita, that I thought that Bruno created a monster because he never really beat Larry. There was never like that payoff. I mean, if he had destroyed Larry in the cage at Shea and left him a bloody mess, and that was the end of it, I think that would have been good. But even though he did win the match at Shea, he kept Larry so strong that it really created kind of a sticky situation, because then, how can another babyface beat Larry? Because Bruno didn't. It would make Bruno look bad. So I just, that's the only part of that feud. But I mean, for those months, beginning in January when they had the exhibition match on TV through Shea, which I think was in August, man, that was one of the best feuds ever. Still my favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, you got one that's more in my wheelhouse here, I will say, because on that video package there, we got obviously Hogan Piper, because that feud legitimately put me on that trajectory to becoming the pro wrestling nutcase that I am today. Hogan Piper was magic. And but growing up, I had a little bit of a falling out with wrestling because of the whole new generation era. I liked the in-ring work of a lot of it, but Vince was going overboard with his occupational characters and Mantar and that kind of thing. And I just wasn't into it. And WCW was always that distant number 2 at the time. And then the NWO happened, and boom. At my high school, I'm playing football, and here's all these guys talking about wrestling again. But what really sold me back into trying to get into wrestling again wasn't NWO, or it was Austin and Hart. Bret Hart is one of my all-time favorites in the ring, and I'm gonna end my comment there. But Austin and Hart, again, that was reliving that magic of Hogan and Piper. But the double turn at WrestleMania 13 was one of the most beautiful things I ever saw. And it was we're going to talk about on Saturday. What are the matches that make WrestleMania worth watching? WrestleMania 13, it's Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And it was a beautiful story that was told in the ring. And those are two of the best added at that time. And so, man, I just I get goosebumps thinking about Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret the Hitman Hart.
Nice. Terry.
What I was raised with in Detroit was one of the biggest feuds of all time, the Sheik against Bobo Brazil.
Oh, man.
They probably went at it thousands and thousands of times over the years in every city, big and small, around the area. But that was always a guaranteed draw up to a point. At some point in the mid 70s or so, it stopped drawing, probably because both were in their 50s by then. But they could still anyway. But thinking back to like Mark Lewin against Wild Bull Curry, or the Hells Angels against Rocky Johnson and Ben Justice, the Fabulous Kangaroos against the Stomper and Ben Justice, we had some great long-lasting feuds in the Detroit area.
Mr. Koloff.
Dusty and Flair. I mean, it was just, again, NWA, Mid-Atlantic. The Steamboat Flair just didn't have the charisma. You could have put Dusty and Flair on Neptune, and it would have drawn. Hogan and Piper, I really think Piper was 90% of all that. Piper could have carried, as a heel, he could have carried any babyface. It was Piper. I would like to have seen Piper against some of the Attitude Era. Excuse me, sorry. Somebody drove by my home. And nobody's supposed to be on Kremlin Boulevard. But Piper, I revere Piper as the GOAT. But the NWA Mid-Atlantic territory, Flair and Dusty were it. They were the it factor. If that makes sense, I don't know. So yeah. I defer.
Mike to class, some classic feuds.
Well, for me, the first one would have been Piper Hogan. But, I would have liked to have seen Piper go up against Austin for some reason. I don't know. I think that would have been an interesting, the battle of the middle fingers, and it would have been great to see Stone Cold get smack Piper over the head with a beer or something like that. That would have been, I think that would have been hilarious.
Stunner, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Mr. Cooley.
I don't know, man. I mean, how about Wildcat Wendall Cooley and Turbo Ted McIrvin? That was a pretty awesome thing. I'm just kidding. No, back in my day, it was early on. I was just breaking into business good, but Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer.
Oh, yeah.
In Georgia Championship Wrestling, and, to see them groom Tommy to come up and take the title from Harley, man, I don't know who couldn't have rooted for him. You call me a mark or whatever, but I was always a babyface guy, always, as a mark when I was coming up and, watching wrestling. And, I don't know. But I liked certain kind of baby faces, you know what I mean? That kind of had that it factor, a little rough around the edges and didn't take crap off of anybody. You don't want to be overly nice and, things like that. But I don't know that I was a Hogan fan when he came out. He probably one of the top 3 ever in this business. He and Dusty and Piper were probably the 3 most charismatic and didn't even have to try, you know what I mean, to get over. I mean, it was just there. They just had that air about them.
Mr. Petry.
Oh, we're all over the place. Go back to Hart and Austin for a minute. There's nothing to look through. You can't see through a thing in that match. Nothing wrong with that match. Go figure out how Austin got blood somewhere in the middle of that match. You have to look really, really closely to figure that one out, how that all went down. Here's a spoiler alert. It wasn't Austin. Dusty and Flair, give me 22 minutes of them in a cage, in a barbed wire match, in a straight match, and I don't care what it is. 22 minutes of Flair and Dusty for the rest of my life on repeat, I'd probably be okay with that. But a couple things that we haven't talked about, it didn't get shown. Stuff from Memphis. How often did Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee go back and forth? Right? I mean, years and years and years. How many Southern titles got changed? Titles changed. And then for me, one of my favorites in this business is Loverboy Dennis Condrey. So give me a Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express. None of them were old. I don't care. You got them wrestling in the 2000s. They were not old. They did their thing, and you saw something new every time you saw them.
Tony Richards.
Well, I'll go. I see your Tennessee territory, and I'll raise one on that one since that's where I grew up on that kind of wrestling. And the first feud I saw in 1972 was Al Green and Jackie Fargo. And Al Green comes out on television and does an interview and basically calls Jackie Fargo a coward, just like his dad's a coward. Jackie Fargo then comes out on television and basically cries on television and gets all upset and says, I tell you what, I will do any match you want to do. And not only that, I'll put my hair up in a match. And then Al Green comes back on television after that, does an interview and says, tell you what, I'll put my brother's Southern Junior Heavyweight title up, $5,000, and I'll leave the country for a year if I don't beat you. And so now we're about to head to this match where the biggest babyface in Tennessee history at this time is going to get his head shaved, or Don Green's going to lose his brother's title, $5,000, and he's going to have to leave the United States for a year.
It's a win-win.
So Jackie Fargo gets his head shaved in the match. And then we go the next week to a cage match between the two, and which Jackie Fargo won. And that led into the Jackie Fargo and the heel Jerry Lawler feud, which basically put Jerry Lawler on the map and transferred the big babyface aura from Jackie Fargo to Jerry Lawler. So that's what I grew up with.
Hey, Chris, let me ask you if I can add this. We've talked about feuds with singles. What about tag teams? How about the Fabs and the Moondogs? How about the Fab? Who were those guys in Memphis? The Medics? Was there?
Yeah, we had Mysterious Medics. We had the Interns. We had
the Interns.
We had Jackie and Roughhouse Fargo, and we had Dennis. We had Dennis Condrey and Phil Hickerson.
Yeah. So the Fabs with those guys. How about the Fabs with the Road Warriors up in AWA? That wasn't just a shoot. I mean, a work. That was the shoot. Mike and Joe wanted to kill Kern.
Two teams that got copied more than any other teams in the 80s.
Absolutely, and then the Road Warriors and the Midnights down in the Crockett territory with Cornette. A feud is a feud, whether it's a single or whether it's a tag, whether it's a ladies or what have you. But I didn't want to go without mentioning the tag team guys because there were some great. Again, a lot of those tag teams put a lot of butts in the seats.
The tag team that a lot of people never saw, Bill Dundee and George Barnes, when they first came over from Australia, they were amazing.
Wow. Yeah, of course. Awesome. Well, you all are going to check out this last classic clip, Benny, if you will, Classic 3.
Ball, 20 minutes. Introducing first on my left, weighing 250 pounds, here is the intern. The intern.
Speaking of.
The manager is Dr. Ken Ramey. Opposing the intern tonight in the opposite corner from Canada at 252 pounds, we introduce to you now Rip Tyler. Rip Tyler. This is one fall. The time limit is 20 minutes, our second match. Thank you.
Welcome to UWA Wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. We have some great matches in store for you today. We'll have our first match right after this.
Another technical first. The program voted #1 by the Wrestling Writers Federation of America. Join us now for the fast-paced competition of professional wrestling, featuring the top grapplers from the world's largest governing body, the National Wrestling Alliance. Let's go to ringside for today's lineup with one of wrestling's former stars and your host on Southeastern Championship Wrestling, Les Thatcher.
Hello, and once again, welcome to Southeastern Championship Wrestling. I'm Les Thatcher, my co-host Phil Rainey, and with us to start the program, Rip Smith. Rip, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Les. I want to thank you and Phil Rainey for having me out here at the beginning of the program to review this.
Me again. Onto the ropes goes Brazil. A tackle. 300 pounds of Bobo Brazil, 400.
With the iron claw and Harley race, trying to get away, looking for those ropes again. David kicks the hands off the rope. David kicking the hands off the rope. He has racing them.
Well, this one is 70s and 80s pro wrestling. Why don't you start us off, Pat?
There was so much information there that my brain was was just struggling to keep up because like every time a clip came up, I was like, okay, I have something to say. Okay, I have something to say. And now I don't remember half of what I was going to say. But man, it's so, I love going back and watching pro wrestling, the old school pro wrestling, for this very reason. It's a whole nother world, right? It's not the over the top kind of showmanship that you see, or that you would see as you got into the 80s, into the Hogan era, into the Attitude Era, and into all these, where everything felt over the top, right? Now, wrestlers have always been, in my lifetime, larger than life and everything, but it's just so interesting to go back and look, and you're like, give me something, give me some energy from like the announcers and the guys calling for the, introducing the wrestlers. Like, he's introducing the intern. I get, how excited can you get about introducing a guy called the intern? But it was just, it's so interesting to see, like, they're just monotone. And then you see the progression as they go along, and you feel the passion. That's a Michael Hayes word they use all the time. But the passion behind it. When you start feeling the passion from everyone around you and everyone on screen, you can't help but get lost in it. And there was just some really amazing moments in there. Anything with old school Andre is so much fun. And though all of that you showed there is why I love professional wrestling, why I encourage people, don't just watch modern wrestling, because you're missing out on some of the best history that there is in anything, right? Like, you're a comic book fan, you shouldn't just read today's comics. You need to go back in time and read stuff from the 70s, the 60s, because that's magic stuff right there. Professional wrestling is much more than the WrestleMania era. It's much more than WWE. It's Crockett. It's Georgia Championship Wrestling. It's Smoky Mountain. It's all of that stuff, and it's all amazing.
Indeed. That's why we do this show. Benny.
Yeah, I mean, so what struck me when I was watching all of that, and you pretty much have like one or two choices now, but when you think that there was 30, probably at least 30 great TV shows all over the country every week, and I mean, God knows how many matches all over the country every week, we were so much better off as fans, in my opinion, back then. To me, that was great wrestling. Now it's, Cirque du Soleil.
Indeed. Mike DeClass.
Just great all around. I mean, I really enjoyed the Andre beating up on the three guys there, though. That was great.
Always
that was awesome. Yeah, that's definitely that's to me. That's you know what it really made, though. I have to say, I got to give a lot of kudos to the announcers in those days, because they're just way better back then than they are now. That's just to me. You know what I mean? The 70s, 80s, and the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The announcers made it back then. They got you into the match. And even the studio shows, like the way they presented the studio shows with the graphics and the intros, and they put a lot of thought into it. It was a lot of work to do all that, and they wrestled a lot more back then too. You got to remember how many dates they did. Okay. I mean, we're talking 5 days, 6 days a week that they were out on the road. So, I mean, it's just amazing. You know what I mean? It's just great. And just all around. And you know what? The originality of it all, though, when you think about it now, it's almost like now with the creative, it's almost like they're rehashing a lot of the stuff that worked. But the fans they're I don't know, the newer fans, I guess, are more fickle now, I guess you could say. But I mean, I enjoyed the shit out of the old stuff. I really do. You know what I mean? Especially those clips. Those were good clips. So.
Indeed. Mr. Koloff.
70s. You don't see anybody going doing acrobatics off the top in the 70s like that. Not every other match is like that with 1,000 high spots. It was just classic wrestling. And again, reiterate the announcers, Gordon Soley, Bob Caudle, Lance Russell. They set the tone for the matches. They set the dynamics. The studio wrestling, you would hear the shrills of the girls screaming in a studio when somebody's getting their heat on the babyface on the floor. It was electric. It's just it's too soap opera. It's too produced now. It's overproduced. And if the fans, if you don't have 50 high spots in the first 3 minutes, the fans are screaming boring, boring, boring. So with that, 70s. But with Andre, those three guys, listen, Andre was one of my best friends. He bought Longhorn cattle from me in 87, 89, 91, and 92. And I was at his ranch 100 times. Those three guys, I've seen Andre grab a hold of an 1,100-pound cow by the head and hold it while Frenchie gave it a shot in the ass. So those three guys, they couldn't have done anything against the Giant. So 70s wrestling, but Andre, maybe I'm getting off course, but I get goosebumps when I see Andre do stuff like that, because I saw him do literally superhuman things at his home, and people just don't know. I mean, if he really wanted to, he could have squeezed the life out of those three at the same time. So thank you.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, I miss the territories. I suppose it's a generational thing in some senses, what you grow up with and what you're familiar with, and what, like, the bigger than life stars, the good guys and the bad guys back in the day had such an impression on all of us. And I suppose change was inevitable, but I mean, it seems like it was just so much more fun back then. It definitely was a whole lot simpler. And, the inevitable struggle between good and bad. And there wasn't much more than that it was all about. So, yeah, it's something which is lost, which I don't think that most people today appreciate at all.
Tony Richard.
Well, the paradigm was driven by technology, and the territories were created by the limitations of technology. And when those limitations went away, that's when the territories went away. And every territory was programmed or booked in wrestling lingo. It was booked based on the demographics and the psychographics of that region's people. And it spoke to them in a way that was very localized and very much driven toward them. But when that technology went away, which opened up the national audience, that couldn't be anymore, because now you have demographics and psychographics for a country you have to reach, not a territory. So it had to be much more homogenized and watered down to appeal to everybody, not just a particular region anymore. So that's where we've gotten to. And I think today's wrestling fan is going through the same pain that we went through in the 80s when the territories went away, except now it's not a national expansion, it's a global one. And the technology is now to a point where it's providing wrestling for a global audience, which has a lot of fans all upset. But that's just another iteration in the evolution of professional wrestling.
Well, Mr. Petry, before we get your comments on the old, we got to let you talk. And of course, we're not only do we back the Koloff Family Tour, we back Mid-Atlantic Territory Wrestling there that you operate on YouTube and out of Virginia. And you got it the old school way in the studio.
Yeah, it is. It's been a ton of fun to try to recreate that studio magic. I heard Mike talk about the interviews and what we do, and heard some really nice comments from some folks. Benny has sent some notes, listening to what we do with our kids and letting them talk. So we are trying to do a throwback and have that same rhythm and feel of what you saw on a Saturday morning. And I think a couple things, Dr. Richards talking about the global expansion. You're absolutely right. There are folks that grew up in wrestling today that are really, really challenged by the fact that Saudi Arabia is going to host a WrestleMania. Like, that's our stuff. What are you talking about? Now, imagine where we are when we're talking about, I want my territories back. I want to be able to, all that stuff. So it's the same thing. The thing, the thing that struck me about all of those clips, and it's what your mind does with it, is think of it 4 lights above the ring, you barely saw who was in the audience. It could have been 40 people, 400 people, 15,000. You didn't know. And that had the crowd had nothing to do with the show. It was what was in that ring and how that was lit. And your imagination ran wild with what that town was, how much smoke was in the air, who was going to run down from the dressing room. And by the way, there were heel dressing rooms and babyface dressing rooms, and they came from different sides of the ring, and it made some sense. So those are the things, those simple things that allow your mind to create whatever story you want to create with how big and bad these people are, they aren't. And a lot of that has gone away. We put a lot of light in those shadows, and all that reality shows up a little bit too bright today. But give me that 70s, early 80s stuff before the expansion hit, and I'll be a happy camper. The other last bit, and we'll get to Mr. Cooley, is the other part is we all had to wait really patiently for a Friday night or a Saturday morning or a Sunday afternoon for something to show up, right? And now, behind me, I can play a clip, for the next week where I've got no repeats for a whole week, right? Exactly right, Vladimir, comrade, sir. No repeats, and I can have anything I want whenever I want it. Nope, I had to wait week after week after week, and I could not wait for Saturday morning, right at 8:05 in the morning on TBS. I couldn't wait for my local stuff to show up, and that was my day. And don't take away my wrestling day, because that was what I was waiting for.
Can I add on one thing there to what Lee was saying, is that I think what gets lost a lot of times is people get obsessed with talking about how the business psychology has changed, and it has, but what hasn't changed is the human psychology. Mm-hmm. The fan psychology is exactly the same as it was in 1945, 1955, 65, whatever. Now, what's different about the business today is I think the people sometimes in the business think, well, everybody knows, so why do I want to put a lot of effort into this? Because everybody really knows, it's just wrestling. And I think that does the business a disservice.
It does. Yeah, indeed. In fact, if you tune into MHW next Thursday night, we'll be live on the Right Now television network. You might recognize a face that comes out of nowhere and makes a surprise appearance and impacts the end of the show. So more to talk about in a couple of weeks, gentlemen.
Can't wait.
Awesome. Mr. Cooley, your thoughts, 70s and 80s pro wrestling.
That's what lit my fire. That stuff right there. That is why I ended up where I was, becoming a huge wrestling fan, and then taking that from just being a boy that was in love with it, pretending out in the yard one day he was going to be a champion and the whole deal, and finally getting the opportunities to do it, and fortunate enough to break in during those times where we had territories and get to experience all of that. And I right towards the end of my career, right before I decided to hang it up, I went and done a couple shows for Vince, and it weren't for me. It really weren't. I mean, the money and all that would have been great, but I don't know, man. I just miss those locker room days where you could go in and sit down. It was like a family, and you talked about things. You all got along. Everyone knew their place, Nowadays, I don't know if it's true, but hell, Joe Blow's probably hoping you're going to go out there and break a leg so he can slip right in there and get your slot. You know what I mean? I just didn't feel that camaraderie when I went and worked those couple shows. And I didn't go back. I told him I weren't interested. But those days, man, are something that, I don't think will ever be again to that magnitude. And it's just a good part of history. And I think about it a lot. I do go on YouTube occasionally and watch some of the older stuff. I don't watch wrestling today. I haven't watched a wrestling show probably in 20 years. Every now and then I'll go by somebody's house or something and they may have it on or hear them talk about it. But wrestling, in my opinion, died when the territories died.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Chris, can I ask one question?
Well, we're going to get to that part right now.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
Hey, this is for Wendell. Hey, whatever happened to the guy that was called Heartbreaker Apollo?
He's sitting right here.
I know he is.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, that's he right here. You know, it was the first time I ever was a heel in my career.
Yep. Heartbreaker Apollo.
Had some fun over there too, man, even though yes. And my partner Adonis. My partner Frankie the Thumper Lancaster, he was Adonis. Yeah.
Wow.
Those were some fun days, man. Fun days.
Benny, a question for somebody.
Maybe for Lee. Are you going to add any more championships to MATW? I'm really starting to get into this show, and it's part of my rotation every week. Are you going to expand it as far as the championships?
Oh, I hope not. We have the main title, the Mid-Atlantic Territory Wrestling Heavyweight title. We got a TV belt and tag belts. I think that waters it down when you start trying to add too many. Now, having said that, our next TV taping in a week from Saturday, we will have some ladies coming down from the Northeast. So Magnificent Mimi and Gabby Ortiz will be on the show. If you haven't had, Mimi is a ID prospect for WWE. Gabby, of course, a product of the Monster Factory. I've seen them work; they're tremendous. It's going to be great to have them down in front of that crowd. But no, I don't think we're looking to expand. I'd be interested in adding a ladies division and a ladies title, but that'd be about it.
Pat Sims, a question for somebody.
Oh, I'm just soaking in all this information, brother. I gotta tell you, I don't have. Shockingly enough, as a guy that usually asks questions a lot, I don't have any right now. I'm literally just listening and learning. Essentially, is what I'm doing.
Awesome.
So I'll pass.
Well, I got one for Mr. Koloff. In fact, when I couldn't wait for tonight. We talk about Andre the Giant, of course, the one and only. Mr. Koloff, I'm sure maybe you can tell me, how many beers have you seen the Giant drink in one time?
Okay, Andre lived in Ellerby, North Carolina. That's where his ranch was. The town that was probably better known in the county is Rockingham, North Carolina, where the Rockingham International Motor Speedway is, which was a fixture on the NASCAR circuit. So we would go from Andre Frenchie, my younger brother, and a couple other people from the area down there would go to the Pizza Hut restaurant in Rockingham. And obviously everybody knew the Giant. Everybody knew Frenchie, who was Andre's right-hand man. And then they would know somewhat of Vladimir, blah, blah, blah. And we'd be in the Rockingham Pizza Hut. I had the bright idea, and I'm 6'3", 200. This morning I was 289 pounds, 6'3". And I had the bright idea back then that I was going to try to keep up with Andre drinking beer. Now, when I was in college, I could put a keg on one shoulder and a keg on the other shoulder and carry them. That's just carrying them. So Andre was drinking pitchers of beer that they served you at Pizza Hut. I was drinking mugs that were filled up from the pitchers. I drank 32 mugs and Andre drank 32 pitchers, and he carried me out of there like a sack of potatoes. And I'm not kidding you. So, 32 pitch. I saw him drink 32 pitchers of Budweiser and not even be affected. And I saw him also drink 15 or 16 1-gallon jugs the big round jugs of Ernest and Julio Gallo wine. You know, just a regular day down on the ranch.
Oh yeah,
that's a big liver.
So in the dictionary, when you read the word cirrhosis, it showed Andre's liver.
Oh, yeah.
Terry Sullivan, a question for somebody.
I have a question for the Wildcat.
Oh.
What are your memories of working for Bill Watts in Mid-South?
Oh.
Oh, I try to forget those.
Uh-oh.
No, it was great, man. We had an awesome crew of guys there. We had Duggan and Jake Roberts and DiBiase and Dr. Death and myself and Al Perez and several others in and out of there. And he gave me an opportunity, he really did, but he was a hard man to do business with. He was I don't know how to say it. Unless you were one of his guys, you didn't get that one-on-one time with him, you know. And I think I told this story last time I was on and on several podcasts. The reason that I left there was because of getting hurt in the ring and going by direction from Grizz Smith, who was the road agent, told me to go to the emergency room, get took care of, get sewed up, send the bill to Bill Watts. Well, the following Tuesday, when I show up to TV interviews, that's when we got paid, he deducted that money out of my check. And we had a falling out about it. And I said, well, tell you what, you go find you another half of your tag team champions because I'm done. And, you know, that's how my career ended there. But by the time I got home from Shreveport to Baton Rouge, it's about a 2.5 hour drive, I think. Bill Dundee, who had left a couple weeks prior, going back to Memphis to take the books there, had already called my house wanting me to call him. So, I mean, wasn't a hard time back then to get a job, you know. But I don't know, man. I guess he was a good guy to some people. He and I just didn't get along. Territory was massive too. I mean, and he would run you to death, you know. And of course, his top guys got to fly on his plane. We had to drive, or we had to buy our own tickets and what have you. So anyway.
Mr. Tony Richards, a question for somebody.
Lee, are you generating the revenue that you had thought you would at this particular point in time in your promotion?
Yes.
So
yeah.
you're in a growth mode.
Yeah, lean and mean right now. We are book crazy over the summer. But lean and mean right now, just absolutely keeping the lights on and doing what we need to do and doing a lot of things, a little unique things outside of the wrestling. We have some like action figures that we're in the middle of doing that because we have so many kids that show up to our shows that are dying to have little action figures of our guys.
So in a promotion where you're pretty much focused on the television in a smaller concentrated area, are you generating money from house shows or where's the most of your revenue coming from?
It's absolutely house shows. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
I still think that'll work.
Yeah. Lean and mean. We're not trying to be what we're not. We're not trying
I
to
think
be
that's always the problem is you try to be something that you're not, and you try to expand beyond you get too big for your britches, you know?
Yeah. I mean, our next the biggest event we've got going on in the summer is the Chuck Coates Memorial Tournament. That's going to be a tag team tournament in Fishersville, Virginia. We have Demolition coming in to sign the Hall of Fame Demolitions. You got announced for the Hall of Fame this week for WWE. So they'll be there, plus a whole bunch of other stuff that will slowly but surely be coming out over the next few months. But it's been so great to just work with these kids and bring them up and be slow and methodical about what we do.
Are you outside the state of North Carolina?
Well, no, we're in Virginia mostly, but we
Virginia
do
mostly.
wander down into. We do not wander into North Carolina. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I got a question for the Wildcat.
There you go.
Help me understand how there's this Rick Casey guy who looks a whole lot like Wendall Cooley did wrestling back in the day. Can you explain that to me? Did you know who that Rick Casey guy was?
Yeah, you know, funny you ask that because I have people in my own hometown that swear that my name is Rick Casey. You know, but when I was breaking in, I was wanting a cool name, you know. I just never could really come up with one. And I had got an opportunity to go up to South Dakota, Iowa area where Bert Prentice, he was trying to get something started up there. And he brought me up, and that's where I met Scott Casey. And I had been watching Southwest on USA Network, and he and I got to talking, and I asked him, I said, look, I don't want to be a copycat or anything like that, and don't want you to think I'm, you know, goofy or something. I said, but I'd like to use the name Casey and be okay with you. Say I'm your cousin or something, kind of help me get a little jump start in the business, you know? He said, hey, kid, whatever you think you want to do, if you can use that and get any whatever, he said, more power to you. I don't have a problem with it. And Gordon Soley, when I finally came back to Continental, you know, a few years later, he continued to kind of reference me, knowing I was born and raised right here in the Northwest Panhandle of Florida, would always say that I was from San Antonio or Dallas or something like that all the time. But that's how that name came about. Matter of fact, Bill Dundee is the one that convinced me to get away from Rick Casey and go and to use my own name. And Skandar Akbar is the one that gave me the Wildcat nickname, and it kind of stuck. And thank God it did, because, you know, I don't know if Rick Casey would have ever done anything. But when Skandar tagged me with that Wildcat, man, it just it clicked. It worked for me for several years, and I'm thankful for it.
That's awesome. I remember between the magazines and then watching pro wrestling this week, it was always interesting to see what name you would be depending upon what footage they were showing. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of that coming out right now, the old Southwest stuff. Somebody has really jumped on that, and they're really throwing those clips and magazines and posters and all that stuff. Matter of fact, I've been on there and saved quite a few of the, you know, the poster shots and things like that with me on there. Of course, nobody would know if there's not a picture associated with it, if they don't know the story, but I know the story. So that's my very first ever territory on a full-time basis with working in Southwest.
That's awesome.
Mr. Cooley, a question for somebody.
Yes, for all of you. Has anybody been able to check out Wildcat, Wendall, Cooley, and the Nothing Special Band?
Yes.
There you go. Good deal.
Where's the next gig?
Yeah, I posted on my Facebook, and if you ask me any technical questions, I don't have a clue because I had to have my wife set this computer up, get me in here, so I know nothing about send me links and websites. I'm just telling you that Nothing Special Band does have a Facebook page and my Facebook page, and I post stuff on there all the time, and that's my big love and joy right now, man, is being able to I don't know how long I got left to do it, but I'm going to give it all I got for ever how long I can.
Awesome. Benny.
Yeah, I have a question for Vlad. When is the tour start again? I believe it's in a couple of weeks, isn't it?
The Ivan Koloff Family Reunion World Tour starts 2 weeks from Saturday in Brentwood, Long Island, New York, at the big event expo. The following week, we are, hell, I can't remember. There's so many dates. This thing has just exploded. Where are we the following?
I know you're here April 11th.
Yeah, that's Tampa, right?
Lutz, yeah.
Yeah, Lutz. We're in Tampa. We're in Jacksonville, Florida. We're in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're in St. Louis. We're in Minneapolis. We're in Dallas. Not Dallas, Houston. We're in Winston-Salem. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Gathering. It seems like we get a new booking every week through our agent to do these. And Nikita and I will not be wrestling. We will only be in a manager position for our nephew, Neil Koloff, who is wrestling. He's wrestled for quite some time and been all over the world and worked for several promotions. And so New Breed Talent and New Breed Wrestling is booking him out, booking us out. We have several people under the New Breed Talent Agency, Banner, Demolition, Hollywood Jeannie Basone, Hustler Rip Rogers. Hey, when is this going to air, by the way?
This will, we're live right now.
We're live. Well, I won't mention
I
won't mention the next name because it comes out tomorrow, so I'm not going to mention it. We have Chris Masters, myself, Nikita, Neil, Amber Nova, just Bushwhacker Luke. We have a plethora of talent that are doing appearances under this talent agency. So again, it starts next Saturday, a week from this coming Saturday in Long Island, New York. And so go to WrestleBreed.com, NewBreedWrestling.com. There's two sites. Wendell, I'll send you the link so you can keep up with it. I know you're an internet guy.
Yes, I am.
and you'll see our T-shirts. We've got the Koloff World Order new T-shirt, and I think Chris, you've ordered one, and Mike, have you ordered one?
No,
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
Benny,
I'll be wearing it to Tampa.
Yeah, I ordered one for me and Benny.
And this tour is to promote the legacy of our late uncle Ivan Koloff and his illustrious career, and our love for our uncle and his widow and his granddaughter, who's going to be accompanying us. And they'll have Uncle Ivan's Hall of Fame ring there. We'll have a replica of Ivan's chain, the Russian chain. We'll have that there. Several other goodies that will be accompanying us on this world tour. So,
well,
I appreciate it.
As people know here with this show, right, Benny, we've had Miss Melody on. Mr. Lee Petry is working with her to get you guys down there this year or next year. But we've had Melody on, we've had yourself, we've had Neil. Hopefully we'll have the Russian Nightmare himself, Nikita Koloff, in a couple weeks on Thursday night, March 26th, live right here. And
well, when you have Nikita on there, tell him, say, Vladimir looks a lot bigger than you do, Nikita. Say that to him.
And Pat Sims, a question for somebody, a comment?
Oh, no, I'm good. Like I said, I am a sponge right now. I'm loving this. This is great because most of the times on my show, it's about what's currently happening for the most part. So it's always nice to be able to talk old school wrestling, what made me a wrestling fan to begin with. And so, like I said, I'm not even thinking about questions to ask because that's normally what I do. I'm just it's almost like I'm just a viewer on YouTube, just watching the show.
Awesome. Terry Sullivan, a last question.
I already asked one. You want me to ask another one?
Yeah, sure.
The television announcer should have questions in their back pocket there, Terry.
Where's my cue cards? Geez, I don't know. I'll pass. I'm a sponge too. I'm just enjoying chilling out and listening.
Mr. Koloff.
No questions. I just want to thank everybody and thank the superstar Wendall Wildcat for being on here. I've heard a lot of stories about you. It's been a pleasure being with all you guys. And without history, we would not have our future. And so the history of pro wrestling and I wish most fans would go back and explore, because as I showed you guys earlier, with this thing right here, the history of the world, the history of the business is right here in the palm of your hand. And there's a lot of, there's so many stories from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, the glory days of wrestling. So thanks again. And thank you guys, all the panel. You guys are,
thank you.
You guys are what keeps it together.
Before we do end this show, Benny, then if you will, my ECMC still pick. This is ECMC Hospital out of Western New York here near Buffalo, 716-898-5001 to help our good friend Mrs. Robin Restino needs a kidney. Blood types are A negative, A positive, and O. And hopefully soon, someday, as we repeat this each and every week, and we do until she gets the kidney she deserves. With that, Benny, our Mike DeClass Independent Wrestler of the Week.
Sure. This week's Indie Wrestler of the Week is Killer Kate. Bayou Independent Wrestling. She's the Bayou Independent Wrestling Champion and the TASW Champion. Found her out on the Indie Experience website, and I think she's ranked number 9th for the month of March.
Nice. And
pretty cool looking belt there too.
Yes, kind of like the NWA Women's Tag title. If you guys will continue with our military salute to service.
Sure. This week's salute to service is to Bob Roop, U.S. Army.
Wow. Nice. Didn't know that. See?
Yeah. There's quite a few of them out there that serve that we don't know about, and we're going to highlight them once we come across them. Thank God for the internet, and like you said, like Mr. Koloff showing the phone there to find out some of this stuff, because there's only so many, and we want to highlight them. So
Bob was a medical tech.
Oh, he was. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
he was also a great shooter at Michigan State, and I think he was a U.S. Greco champion.
So he was an amateur wrestler prior. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wasn't he
68 Olympics?
Yep. Greco, which was unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
Wow. And with that, of course, we'd like to always salute and thank our troops serving abroad as we talk currently of what's going on in this country and world. And, they if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be much of anything. Benny, if you will, my PSA of the week. This week's PSA is the Tim Tebow Foundation, and that's timtebowfoundation.org. They are taking donations, and they're trying to help prevent sex trafficking, abuse of children. So I think that's a really good thing, and that is our PSA for the week, timtebowfoundation.org. And with that, as Mr. Koloff already said, but we'll say it on behalf of the Twisted Turnbuckle podcast show, and Benny, we appreciate each and every one of these guys and taking the time and joining us live tonight on the Player Entertainment Network YouTube channel for this 5th edition of Classic Pro Wrestling Hollywood Squares type show.
And this was the best one, I think.
Yes, indeed.
Excellent.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
definitely.
gents. Be good.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yep. Good night.
All right, you guys be safe.
Take it easy. And if it's easy, guys, take it twice.